The table is set with the finest china, ready to celebrate the warmth and charm of a true Sunday supper. These gatherings were about more than just food. They were a time to create memories and share hearty meals that showcase the best of nostalgic mid-century cooking. Let's dive into a feast of retro recipes that deserve a second look. Milk toast. Before macaroni and cheese took the crown as the ultimate comfort food, there was milk toast. This retro recipe, steeped in history, was a beloved dish for families who valued simplicity and warmth over flair. The preparation was effortless, yet satisfying. Slices of bread were toasted until golden, then soaked in warm milk and topped with butter. A sprinkle of sugar or cinnamon added a touch of sweetness, making it a cozy treat for Sunday suppers or a remedy for anyone under the weather. Milk toast wasn't just a meal, it was a tradition, a nostalgic comfort food that symbolized mid-century frugality and resourcefulness. Served to children, the elderly, or anyone needing extra care, it was the culinary equivalent of a warm blanket. Though it's largely forgotten today, milk toast is worth revisiting as a simple, heartwarming dish that captures the essence of retro cooking and family memories. Codfish cakes with cream peas. Codfish cakes with cream peas are a Sunday supper classic, blending simple ingredients into a dish full of flavor and comfort. This retro recipe brought families together with its hearty, satisfying taste and nostalgic charm. To make the codfish cakes, flaky salted cod was combined with mashed potatoes, onions, and a few basic spices before being shaped into patties and pan-fried to golden perfection. The addition of cream peas with their velvety sauce provided the perfect complement to the savory cakes, creating a balanced and comforting meal. This dish became a mid-century favorite for its affordability and ease of preparation. Its versatility allowed it to be served as a main course or even as part of a larger spread for Sunday gatherings. Today, codfish cakes with cream peas evoke fond memories of simpler times, when vintage recipes brought families together and filled kitchens with warmth. Tomato aspic. Tomato aspic is a quintessential example of vintage mid-century cooking. This gelatinous tomato dish was a mainstay of Sunday supper tables, glistening with a glossy sheen that seemed straight out of a retro cookbook. Often crowned with a generous dollop of mayonnaise, it was a dish that combined skill and creativity in the kitchen. The preparation was an art form. Tomato juice was mixed with unflavored gelatin and seasoned with Worcestershire sauce, celery, and onions. Once chilled and set, it was sliced like cake and served as either an appetizer or a side dish. Its popularity came from its elegance. It could be made ahead of time, transported easily, and presented beautifully. Not everyone loved tomato aspic, though. For some, its tangy, savory taste was a hit, while others found its wobbling texture off-putting. Today, it remains a nostalgic relic of retro recipes when gelatin ruled the culinary world. Whether it brings back fond memories or seems like a mid-century misstep, this dish is undeniably a conversation starter. Liver loaf with brown gravy. Liver loaf was the mid-century answer to using every bit of food resourcefully, a true vintage creation that balanced nutrition with ingenuity. This retro recipe involved shaping minced liver into a loaf and smothering it with rich brown gravy for flavor. The preparation was straightforward, yet bold. Liver was finely chopped and mixed with breadcrumbs, eggs, onions, and just enough spices to temper its distinctive aroma. Once baked to perfection, it resembled meatloaf in appearance, but carried the unmistakable scent of liver. The thick brown gravy wasn't optional. It was essential to complement or mask the strong taste. This nostalgic dish had its fans, particularly among those who endured the hardships of the Great Depression and World War II. For them, liver loaf was a comforting reminder of their resourceful past. Though it has faded from modern tables, liver loaf remains a fascinating piece of culinary history that speaks to the creativity and resilience of mid-century cooking. Pork cake. Yes, you read that right. Pork cake. It may sound strange, but trust us, it was a dish that had its time in the spotlight. Imagine if meatloaf and fruitcake had a deliciously unexpected meeting. What you'd get is pork cake. A rich, meaty loaf filled with pork and spices, it was a Sunday dinner staple in the South that raised eyebrows and inspired requests for the secret recipe. The name itself was as unusual as the ingredients: ground pork, breadcrumbs, eggs, and spices like cloves and nutmeg. Some versions even included a touch of molasses or brown sugar, adding a subtle sweetness to the savory mixture. The loaf was baked until firm, then sliced and served with gravy, or, for the more adventurous, a side of applesauce. You might be wondering why anyone would go to the trouble of making a pork cake. Well, it was a clever way to stretch a small amount of meat. combining it with ingredients like breadcrumbs to feed a family without breaking the bank. And let's not forget, it was incredibly flavorful and different from your everyday meatloaf. Though pork cake has nearly disappeared from modern tables, it lives on in retro recipe books and the fond memories of those who still enjoy nostalgic foods. Deviled ham sandwiches. Here's a sandwich that knew how to make an impression. Soft white bread with a crunchy side of celery hearts, all paired with the zesty kick of deviled ham. Deviled ham was ham with a whole lot of attitude. Spicy, minced, and mixed with mayo or mustard to create a creamy spread packed with flavor. In the mid-20th century, canned deviled ham was a pantry essential, often sold in small paper-wrapped tins. It had a salty, tangy personality that made it the perfect topping for bread. When paired with crisp celery hearts, it was a delicious contrast of textures, offering just the right amount of crunch to balance out the richness of the ham. This wasn't the type of Sunday supper that took hours to prepare, but it was incredibly satisfying. It was quick, tasty, and perfect for those days when you needed something effortless yet flavorful. While deviled ham may have faded from the spotlight, it still holds a place in retro recipe books and perhaps in the memories of those who grew up with it. Whether you're familiar with it or not, deviled ham is a piece of culinary nostalgia that's worth remembering. Welsh Rabbit. Don't worry, no rabbits were harmed in the making of Welsh Rabbit. Despite the curious name, this dish wasn't about bunnies. It was all about melted cheese poured over toast. This simple yet indulgent dish was a staple in many homes, especially during the colder months. The name itself comes from 18th century British humor, where it was often referred to as poor man's meat, but there was nothing poor about the flavor. The cheese sauce, typically made with sharp cheddar, mustard, and sometimes a dash of beer or Worcestershire sauce, was the star of the show. Once it melted and bubbled to perfection, it transformed a humble slice of toast into a comforting, decadent meal. Welsh Rabbit was quick to prepare, inexpensive, and downright satisfying. It was a great way to use up any leftover cheese, making it the unsung hero of the kitchen. Think of it as a fancier cousin of cheese fondue, but in the past, it was a lifesaver for families looking to stretch their groceries. Even today, it's just as appealing. Serve it with a side salad or a dollop of chutney, and you've got yourself a meal that feels like a warm hug. Beef and cabbage pockets. Now, imagine sinking your teeth into a warm, fluffy piece of bread stuffed with a delicious mixture of spiced meat and tender cabbage. These pockets were the quiet stars of classic Sunday dinners, perfect for eating with two hands while surrounded by the embrace of dough. Popular among farming families and immigrants alike, they were both affordable and hearty, feeding families for just a few dollars. The filling was a simple yet delightful combination of ground beef, onions, cabbage, and a pinch of salt, pepper, and occasionally caraway seeds. The dough was hand-rolled around the mixture and baked to a golden brown perfection. These beef and cabbage pockets weren't just tasty, they were practical too. They could be prepared ahead of time, warmed up later, or packed in a basket for a picnic. While they may have modern-day cousins in empanadas or pierogies, there was something special about the old-school beef and cabbage pockets. They were the main attraction at family dinners right before the Jell-O mold made its appearance. Today, they're a nostalgic reminder of the times when Sunday dinners brought families together, offering comfort and filling bellies with wholesome goodness. Chicken a la king. Now, let's talk about a dish that was the Beyoncé of mid-century Sunday suppers. Chicken a la king. Tender chunks of chicken were swimming in a creamy sauce filled with mushrooms, peas, and sometimes even a little sherry for that extra touch of sophistication. Pile it on a warm, flaky biscuit, and you've got a meal that could cheer up even the grumpiest of family members. Chicken a la king wasn't just a meal, it was an event. Moms everywhere would whip it up to show off their culinary skills and use up leftover chicken. It was common at potlucks and even made an appearance at church socials. Some trace its roots to New York's Delmonico's restaurant in the late 1800s, but by the mid-century, it was a household staple. So why did it fade away? Maybe because we collectively decided carbs on carbs were too much. Spoiler, they're not. Or perhaps it's because pre-made biscuits fell out of favor, sending this creamy delight into the history books. Chicken a la king deserves another chance. Hearty, comforting, and endlessly customizable. It's the perfect way to use leftover chicken or just indulge in something cozy. Channel those 1950s vibes and whip it up. It'll feel like a time machine to comfort town. Ham mousse. You might think the idea of ham mousse sounds like the punchline to a retro food joke, but in its time, it was considered sophisticated. Imagine pale pink mousse quivering gently in a gelatin mold, garnished with parsley or even radish roses. perfect for a mid-century ladies' luncheon or a formal Sunday spread. To make ham mousse, you'd puree ham with mayonnaise, cream, and seasonings like mustard or Worcestershire sauce. The mixture was poured into a gelatin-lined mold and chilled until set. The result? A creamy, salty spread perfect for crackers, celery sticks, or rye toast. Though it seems odd by today's standards, ham mousse was a marvel of ingenuity. Nothing went to waste, and even leftover ham had a second life as a party centerpiece. Gelatin molds were all the rage back then, and no gathering was complete without one. Ham mousse might get a few laughs today, but it's sure to be a conversation starter at your next event. Try it out, you might just be surprised by how it sparks fond memories. Salmon Loaf. Salmon loaf may not sound glamorous, but in its heyday it was the pride of thrifty households. Made from canned salmon, shelf-stable breadcrumbs, eggs, and a handful of seasonings, this loaf was not only economical but surprisingly elegant. The lemon sauce that accompanied it was the real star, tangy, buttery, and slightly sweet, transforming this budget meal into a Sunday special. Don't let the canned salmon fool you. This dish was packed with protein, omega-3s, and a dose of nostalgia that could take you straight back to Grandma's kitchen. Salmon loaf first gained popularity during the Great Depression and World War II, providing an inexpensive way to stretch ingredients. Surprisingly versatile, it could be served as a Sunday supper or enjoyed cold the next day with a salad. While it may no longer grace menus today, it serves as a reminder of just how resourceful home cooks were back then. If you're feeling adventurous or nostalgic, give it a try. You might just discover a new old favorite for your Sunday table. Beef tongue stew. Let's dive into a dish that might sound like a dare. Beef tongue stew. Before you wrinkle your nose, know that this was the kind of meal that made families ask for seconds. Beef tongue was slow-cooked with onions, carrots, and potatoes, transforming into tender slices of savory goodness, like pot roast with a little extra wow. The beef tongue was a budget-friendly protein, packing a punch of flavor while stretching meals without sacrificing heartiness. It was the unsung hero of Sunday suppers. The trick to cooking beef tongue was simple. Boil it until tender, peel off the outer skin. It's not as gross as it sounds, promise. And let the tongue soak up the rich, brothy stew. As prepackaged convenience foods took over, this dish started to fade from the map. Beef tongue stew may be a throwback, but if you can find a tongue at your butcher or muster the courage to try one, it's worth exploring. Earthy, tender, and packed with nostalgia, this dish could become your next Sunday favorite. Hot Water Cornbread. Hot water cornbread was more than just a dish. It was a Southern tradition. This skillet-fried bread, made with simple ingredients like cornmeal, hot water, and a pinch of salt, was nothing short of divine. The edges were crispy, the center soft, and the flavor was irresistible. Pair it with buttermilk gravy, and you're in for a real treat. The gravy, creamy, tangy, and often enriched with bacon grease or sausage drippings, elevated this dish to another level. The cornbread acted as a sponge, soaking up every last drop, creating a bite of heaven. It wasn't fancy, but it was undoubtedly soul food. Hot water cornbread was cheap, quick to make, and incredibly versatile, enjoyed at breakfast, dinner, or even as dessert. While it may not be as common today, for those who grew up with it, it's still a cherished favorite. If you've never tried it, you're missing out on a Southern classic that deserves a revival. Fried cornmeal mush. If fried cornmeal mush isn't on your radar, then you've never had it fresh from the skillet. This golden, crispy on the outside, soft on the inside dish was a rustic cousin to pancakes, simple, hearty, and satisfying. Made from cornmeal cooked into a thick porridge, it was poured into a loaf pan, cooled, sliced, and fried to crispy perfection. It was a family staple in the early 20th century, stretching budgets with a cheap and filling meal. Cornmeal could be made into bread or fritters, but fried mush with syrup was the weekend treat. Its versatility was what made it so special. Some families served it sweet, while others added gravy for a savory twist. Either way, it was a comfort food classic, and the crispy edges were simply heavenly. Fried cornmeal mush is a nostalgic gem that deserves a place on your breakfast table today. Dust off your cast iron skillet and see why generations before us couldn't get enough of this crispy, syrup-soaked delight. Onion pie. Onion pie might not sound like a showstopper, but in its day, it was the hero of Sunday suppers. A savory masterpiece made of caramelized onions, rich cream, and flaky crust, onion pie was a comforting dish that you could savor with every bite. Onions were cheap, easy to store, and packed with flavor, making them a pantry staple for frugal cooks. Simple ingredients like eggs, cream, and a dash of nutmeg or cheese turned this humble dish into something special. Savory tarts like onion pie have roots in European cooking, especially in Germany and France. Immigrants brought this idea to America, and it became a staple in farming communities where onions were plentiful. Though onion pie has mostly disappeared from dinner tables today, it's worth rediscovering. Serve it with a fresh green salad or alongside roasted meats for a Sunday supper that's both timeless and delicious. Trust me, this pie is far from boring. It's a flavor. Sardine stuffed deviled eggs. Deviled eggs are a retro classic, but have you ever tried sardine stuffed eggs? These hard-boiled eggs were stuffed with a creamy yolk mixture spiked with mashed sardines, making them the ultimate Sunday supper appetizer. While they may sound unusual, they were a favorite among families looking to add a quirky twist to their gatherings. The creamy texture of the sardine filling complemented the eggs perfectly, creating a unique flavor combination that became a conversation starter at many dinner parties. Served chilled, these eggs were the perfect bite-sized snack for guests to enjoy. If you're feeling adventurous, give sardine stuffed deviled eggs a try. You might just rediscover a forgotten gem from the past. Whether you're looking to surprise your friends or explore a nostalgic recipe, these sardine stuffed eggs are sure to leave an impression. Give them a whirl and you may find they hold a place in your own family traditions. Pineapple and cheese casserole. Pineapple and cheese casserole might sound like an identity crisis, but trust me, it works. A mix of sweet pineapple chunks, shredded cheese, buttery crackers, and a hint of sugar created an unexpectedly addictive flavor combination. It was a Southern favorite often served alongside baked ham at Sunday suppers, where its sweet and tangy notes perfectly complemented the saltiness of the ham. This casserole was one of those dishes that left people wondering, is it a side or a dessert? Either way, it was always a hit at family gatherings and potlucks. The origins of this quirky casserole are murky, but that's the Southern way, taking odd combinations and turning them into culinary gold. Cheese and pineapple might seem strange, but add a crispy cracker topping, and you've got a dish that's both comforting and intriguing. While this casserole may have fallen out of favor, it's time for a revival. Bring it to your next potluck or holiday meal, and be ready to explain why this unlikely pairing works so well. Spoiler, it's magic. Boiled salt pork with parsnips. Boiled salt pork with parsnips is a comfort food that brings a sense of warmth and nostalgia, like a hug from a beloved grandparent. The dish originated during tough times, but its simplicity made it a favorite Sunday meal. Salt pork was cured and rich in flavor, and after being boiled, it lost its salty edge, blending beautifully with sweet parsnips. Parsnips are hardy root vegetables that can grow even in the harshest climates, making them a reliable choice for families. Occasionally, potatoes or carrots were added to the dish to stretch it even further, making it a truly satisfying meal. Though it may not be considered gourmet today, boiled salt pork with parsnips is a dish that highlights the importance of making the most of what was available. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest meals are the most memorable, proving that with a little creativity and resourcefulness, even the humblest ingredients can create something truly comforting. Scrapple. Scrapple is the culinary equivalent of using every last scrap, and it's a dish that has a fascinating backstory. Often referred to as a zero-waste meal, Scrapple combines pork scraps, cornmeal, and spices into a savory loaf that's sliced and fried to crispy perfection. Born from Pennsylvania Dutch kitchens, Scrapple was designed to stretch a tight budget and make use of every part of the pig. The result? A crispy, hearty dish that combines the texture of a pancake's crisp edges with the savory richness of sausage. While some enjoy it drizzled with maple syrup or paired with apple butter, purists often swear by ketchup as the best topping. What makes Scrapple even more interesting is its versatility. It can be eaten sweet, savory, or anywhere in between. Though its name may not sound particularly gourmet, Scrapple's rustic charm has allowed it to endure in certain regions of the country. It's both a nostalgic meal for some and an enigmatic curiosity for others, but Scrapple is undoubtedly food with a story. Today, it might not be a common sight at the dinner table, but Scrapple deserves a revival, not just because of its frugality, but because it's a delicious testament to resourcefulness. Mock turtle soup. Mock turtle soup is a dish that might make you raise an eyebrow, but it has an interesting origin. Real turtle soup was a luxury that many couldn't afford in the 1800s, so home cooks began making mock turtle soup as an affordable stand-in. Instead of turtle, the recipe used calf's head. Yes, you read that correctly. The head was boiled to extract all its rich flavors, and bits of meat, including tongue and brain, were added to the broth. With spices, sherry, and a touch of lemon juice, the result was a savory, deep-flavored soup that allowed those seeking the prestige of turtle soup to indulge without the high cost. This dish even made its way into popular culture, notably in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, where the mock turtle character ponders its own existence. While boiling a calf's head may not be the most appealing thought today, mock turtle soup was once a clever way to create a luxurious dish on a budget. It's a dish that shows the ingenuity of cooks, turning humble ingredients into something extraordinary. Cabbage and peanut butter rolls. This dish might sound like a challenge, but it was once a quirky staple of Depression-era kitchens. With simple, affordable ingredients like cabbage and peanut butter, these rolls combined in a way that was unexpected, yet surprisingly tasty. Here's how it worked. Large cabbage leaves were blanched, then spread with creamy peanut butter before being rolled up tightly, like little cabbage burritos. After baking, the flavors melded together into a satisfying, protein-packed dish that helped families make the most of what they had. Cabbage was inexpensive, and peanut butter was filling, making these rolls a hearty meal that stretched budgets. Some recipes even included a drizzle of molasses or honey to add a touch of sweetness when times were tough. While cabbage and peanut butter rolls may not seem like a five-star dish today, they represent the ingenuity of past generations. They might not be on any modern restaurant menus, but they could be a fun conversation starter at your next retro dinner party. It's a dish with history and plenty of flavor, even if it's a little outside the norm. Oxtail Pie. If you've ever wondered about the less traveled cuts of beef, oxtail pie is a rich, comforting dish that proves you can make something incredible from what might otherwise be considered a throwaway cut. Oxtails are packed with collagen, which, when slow cooked, creates a silky, flavorful texture. To make this hearty pie, oxtails were simmered for hours with onions, carrots, and celery until the meat fell off the bone. The tender meat was then placed in a pie crust, topped with a golden pastry lid, and baked until perfectly crispy. The long cooking process developed an almost velvety richness that elevated what was once a lesser cut into a real delicacy. While oxtail pie may be rare today, the flavors remain unforgettable. This dish is a beautiful example of how slow cooking and creativity can transform humble ingredients into a feast that could fuel a week's worth of hard work. Baked 7 beans. Baked 7 beans is a casserole that stays true to its name by blending 7 different types of beans into a flavorful, satisfying dish. If you love beans, this is the ultimate dish for you, combining multiple varieties like kidney beans, navy beans, butter beans, black lima beans, and pinto beans, each with its own unique texture and flavor. Mixed together with ingredients like ketchup, brown sugar, mustard, bacon, and molasses, this dish offers a rich, sweet, smoky, and slightly tangy taste that fills you up like nothing else. The dish gained popularity in the 1970s when people started getting more creative with their meals, and baked 7 beans truly embodies that era's culinary spirit. It's a dish that not only satisfies but can feed a whole family with leftovers to spare. For many, this was the go-to dish at family gatherings or Sunday dinners, as it could stretch to feed a crowd without costing much. Its combination of flavors and textures made it a timeless classic that people continue to enjoy today. Gingerbread Pancakes. Gingerbread pancakes offer a spicy and flavorful variation of the classic pancake breakfast. Made with the warm spices of ginger, cinnamon, and molasses, these pancakes bring the comforting taste of gingerbread into a new form. This dish was a product of the fusion food movement that gained popularity from the 1930s through the 1970s. The combination of pancakes and gingerbread might seem unusual, but it became a hit in many homes. Though gingerbread itself has a long history, it was during the mid-20th century that it began to appear in unexpected forms, like these pancakes. Gingerbread houses, another iconic creation, were often made for holidays, but gingerbread pancakes became a beloved breakfast choice. With their subtle spiciness and sweetness, they offered a new twist on a breakfast classic, and though they didn't become a mainstay in every household, those who grew up with them still cherish them as a nostalgic treat. Big Mama's Egg Pie. Big Mama's Egg Pie, though a funny-sounding name, is a dish that has its roots deep in Southern tradition. It's believed the term Big Mama refers to the matriarch of the family, who would typically be in charge of preparing meals. This affectionate term was used in many Southern black families to refer to grandmothers or the eldest women in the household, who were revered for their cooking skills. When the Great Migration occurred, these families brought along many beloved recipes, including this egg custard pie. Egg pie is a custard-based dessert that became a staple in Southern homes, and many people have memories of enjoying it at family gatherings. The key to a successful egg pie lies in properly whisking the eggs to achieve the perfect consistency. The simplicity of this dish is part of its charm. It's easy to make with ingredients that are found in almost every home. What makes it even better is how versatile it is. It can be enjoyed as a breakfast, a snack, or a dessert, all while being comforting and satisfying. Johnny Cakes. Johnny Cakes, or whatever name you may know them by, are a beloved dish that showcases the creativity of Americans when it comes to revamping traditional meals. Though the dish is widely recognized, the sausage version became a special creation originating in North America. It all began with indigenous communities who used ground corn as a staple in their diets. This corn was transformed into flatbreads, which became a central part of daily meals. As farming communities gained access to more pork, sausages found their way into the mix. It's a hearty breakfast or lunch that provides just enough to fuel you through the day without making you feel overly full. The dish is a great example of how ingredients can come together to create something truly delicious. The name Johnny Cake sparks some curiosity, with theories surrounding its origin. There's no historical figure named Johnny associated with the dish, and no famous journey linked to its popularity. Some say the name could stem from Jonah, a term from New England used to describe cornmeal cakes, though it's not quite the same. The focus, however, is on how this dish combines corn and sausage in a way that makes both shine. Originally, the North featured a more corn-centric version, but when it spread to New England, it evolved into a breakfast meal served with molasses or syrup. In the South, cornmeal pancakes took precedence, and over time, various breakfast additions, including sausage, were incorporated into the dish, creating a staple in many homes. Stuffed zucchini boats. Stuffed zucchini boats became a popular dish in the 1960s and 1970s, reflecting the changing food culture of the time. As people began to experiment with ingredients from different cultures, zucchini boats emerged as a healthy, customizable option. Stuffed with a variety of fillings, including ground beef or vegetables, they provided a nutritious alternative to traditional meals. Though often associated with Italian-American cuisine, stuffed zucchini boats share similarities with Mediterranean dishes like stuffed peppers and eggplants. The versatility of this dish made it a favorite in homes looking to expand their culinary horizons. Whether filled with a vegetarian stuffing or one made with meat, zucchini boats allowed families to create a meal that was not only tasty, but also healthy. They were a prime example of how food trends in the late 20th century began to embrace fresh, wholesome ingredients while still offering comfort and flavor. While many are forgotten, they remain nostalgic relics of the golden age of entertaining. Which of these would you recreate for New Year's?